The first thing that struck me about Berlin wasn't the language or the architecture. It was a silence, and not the calming kind. It was a heavy quiet that settles in after midnight, when you're alone in a space that doesn't recognize you. My company had arranged a small, furnished apartment for me in Charlottenburg. It had clean gray walls, a couch that felt more like it belonged in a medical waiting area, and windows sealed so tightly they seemed designed to shut the world out. When I set my suitcase down and the wheels stopped rattling, the stillness slammed into my chest. Back in Toledo, even late at night, there was always noise. An aging furnace clicking on and off, a dog barking a couple of houses away, a truck roaring down I-475. Hey, all I could hear was my own breathing. The refrigerator hummed steadily, like a patient hooked up to a monitor. The next day, I started working U.S. hours, which meant my mornings were everyone else's evenings. I sat at a small desk near the window, holding a mug of bitter coffee, staring at spreadsheets filled with shipping routes and container numbers. The work was exactly what I'd done well for 35 years, taking disorder and straightening it out without raising my voice. Some people love logistics of the pressure and puzzles. I loved it because it was logical. You can't talk your way out of a missing container. You identify the gap. You trace the paperwork. You repair what's broken. I told myself my marriage could be handled the same way. That illusion lasted 4 days. On the 5th night, I walked down the block to a grocery store because I'd eaten too many frozen meals, and my stomach felt like it was lined with cardboard. The place reminded me of a Kroger, if Kroger were quieter and everyone moved with a sense of purpose. I stood in front of a shelf of yogurt cups, squinting at labels that might as well have been printed underwater. An older woman beside me, silver hair, practical shoes, watched for a moment, then pointed at one cup and said something in German I didn't understand. She smiled anyway. "Thank you," I said, because it was all I had to offer. I walked back to the apartment with a bag I hoped contained normal food and not pickled fish. The air smelled like rain and diesel. Somewhere underground, a train rumbled past. For a brief moment, I felt steady. Then my phone vibrated. Sharon. I stared at her name like it was a warning label. When I answered, her face filled the screen. Hair done, lipstick perfect. The house behind her looked warmer than it had any right to. "Well," she said, dragging the word out. "Look at you, Mr. International." "It's work," I said. She laughed. "Sure. A midlife crisis with a passport." I didn't respond. I'd learned long ago that giving her a spark only gave her fuel. "I need you to sign something," she said, her tone shifting like she'd flipped a switch. "What is it?" "Just paperwork. For a little project. Don't turn it into a whole thing." "What project?" She rolled her eyes. "Frank, not everything is your business." I almost said, "We're married. It is my business." Instead, I swallowed it. "Email it," I said. "I'll look." Her smile sharpened. "Just sign it when it comes. And don't start acting like my father." Then she leaned closer to the camera and lowered her voice. "I had people over last night. The house felt alive again." Something cold slid through me. "What people?" I asked. She shrugged. "Friends. Neighbors. People who aren't boring." In the background, I caught a flash of movement. Someone laughing as they passed the doorway. In my house. The call ended, and I sat there staring at my reflection in the dark screen of the phone. For a long moment, all I heard was my heartbeat and the distant rush of the city outside. I told myself not to spiral. Don't assume. Don't react. Logistics rule number 1. Don't panic without data. So I checked the data. I opened our banking app, expecting grocery charges or dinner out. Instead, I saw a new couch purchase, an expensive one. Then charges from a home boutique I didn't recognize. Then a hotel booking. And then the one that made my mouth go dry, a withdrawal so large the numbers looked wrong at first glance. I blinked and read it again. My thumb hovered over the screen. I could almost hear Earl's voice from that barbecue. "You want me to say something?" I didn't call Sharon. Not yet. I called Earl. He picked up on the second ring. "Frank, you got a minute?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Always." I told him about the call, the people in my house, the money. Earl let out a slow breath. You want me to drive by? He asked. No, I said quickly. Then softer. Maybe. I don't know. Frank, Earl said, his voice calm in that union floor way you trust during crisis. You need to protect yourself. You hear me? I hear you. After I hung up, I looked around the apartment that still didn't feel like mine. My chest ached in that dull, tight way. I thought about my old Jeep in the driveway. The smell of coffee at the diner on Reynolds Road. Summer evenings when the sun slipped behind the trees. I'd left for dignity. I hadn't expected to feel this empty. 2 days later, an email landed in my work inbox with a subject line that sounded like it belonged in a courtroom. Compliance request, signature verification needed. I opened it, and the blood drained from my face. They were asking me to confirm whether I had signed authorization documents tied to a financial disclosure at my Ohio home address, documents bearing a signature that looked like mine. Only I didn't remember signing anything. And deep down, I already knew why. My phone rang at 3:07 a.m. Not Sharon's soft buzz. This was a sharp, insistent ring, the kind that doesn't care what time it is. I fumbled for it in the dark. The apartment was cold in that sealed-up Berlin way. Outside, the street was empty. No crickets, no freeway hum. Just the low pulse of a city that never fully sleeps. Unknown number. For a second, I almost ignored it. Then the email flashed through my mind. I answered. Hello. A woman's voice came through, calm but careful. Mr. Hargrove. This is Frank. My name is Marissa. I'm a paralegal with a firm in Ohio. I'm sorry to call so late. My file shows you're currently in Berlin. I sat up, the blanket sliding to my waist. What's this about? There was a pause, the kind where words are chosen carefully. I need to ask you a direct question, sir. Have you granted your wife, Sharon Hargrove, power of attorney? The room seemed to tilt. I pressed my palm to my forehead. No, I said. Absolutely not. Another pause, longer this time. Okay, she said quietly. Thank you. That helps. Helps who? I asked. Marissa, what's going on? I'm not an attorney, she said evenly, so I can't advise you, but I can explain why I'm calling. Your wife submitted documents to a lender referencing a power of attorney attached to a loan application. A loan? I repeated. Yes, sir. A business loan. The application ties financing to your marital home in Toledo and references your income history. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. What business? She hesitated. A small importing company, boutique scale. The materials reference leveraging Mr. Hargrove's logistics network and industry relationships. For a moment, I couldn't speak. It wasn't just the money or even the house. It was my name, my reputation, the career I'd built carefully, honestly, over decades. So she's using my career like a coupon. I said, bitterness surprising even me. Marissa stayed professional. Mr. Hargrove, I don't know your marriage, and I'm not here to judge. I only needed to confirm whether you knowingly authorized these documents. I didn't, I said. My voice shook now. I signed nothing. Understood. I'll note that. Wait, I said. Who's the lender? What firm are you with? I work for an attorney reviewing the documentation for a related matter, she said carefully. I can give you the firm name, but I can't send documents without proper authorization. I exhaled, the breath tasting like panic. In my mind, I saw Sharon smirk on that video call, heard her voice saying a little project. Marissa, I said, forcing myself to slow down. Do you think the signature is forged? I can't make that claim, she replied, but I can say it doesn't appear consistent with the example on file. That's why questions are being raised. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere far away, a siren wailed once and faded. I wanted to throw the phone. I wanted to book a flight home immediately. I wanted to walk into my house and tear every document from Sharon's hands. Instead, I did what I've always done when things stop making sense. I asked for facts. Can you email me your firm's contact information? I asked. Yes, she said, to the address you're calling from. That's fine. And Mr. Hargrove, she added softly, I'm sorry. I know this is a lot. The call ended. I sat in the dark, holding the phone like it weighed 50 pounds. There's a kind of anger that's loud and explosive, the kind you see in movies, where a man smashes a lamp and screams into the night. This wasn't that. This was a colder kind of anger, the sort that tightens your focus and sharpens every thought. I stood and crossed to the window. Berlin's streetlights laid pale stripes across the sidewalk below. Somewhere nearby, a bus sighed as it pulled in, its doors opening and closing like a weary breath. Through the cracked seal of the frame, I could smell rain. My thoughts drifted to Sharon, inside my house, on my couch, in my kitchen, using my money, my name, my life. I pictured her laughing with other people while stacking a future on top of a lie. Then I considered what would happen if that lie became official. In logistics, one bad document can stall an entire shipment. Ignore it, and you don't just lose money, you lose trust. And trust, once broken, is the hardest thing to reclaim. Sleep never came back. I didn't even attempt it. When my workday finally began, I moved through meetings as if submerged. I answered questions about ports and transit windows. I resolved a customs problem with a supplier in Michigan. My hands worked on autopilot, but my mind stayed in Toledo, parked at my kitchen counter, replaying Sharon's voice. At noon Berlin time, I stepped outside and called Rick Lawson, an American expat I'd been coordinating with locally. Rick was in his early 50s, razor-sharp, twice divorced, and intolerant of excuses. He picked up with his usual bluntness. You alive, Frank? Barely, I said. I told him about the compliance email, the bank alerts, and the 3 a.m. call. Rick didn't offer sympathy sounds. He just listened. When I finished, he said, She's playing chicken with your life. I keep thinking there's a misunderstanding. I admitted. Maybe she's just. Frank, Rick cut in, not unkindly. I've been married to 2 women who could smile while they emptied your pockets. This isn't confusion. It's a plan. My stomach tightened. If I shut it down now, she's finished. Then she should have thought of that, Rick said. Because here's the reality. If you don't stop it, you might be the one who's finished. Your name's on this. That landed hard because it was true. I thanked him and hung up, my palms slick with sweat. I searched for a family law attorney back in Toledo, someone local, someone fluent in Ohio courts, someone who didn't sound like a machine. Earl had once mentioned a name. After a few calls, I booked an appointment with Kendra Hull. We met by video. She was in her 40s, with short hair, reading glasses, and a no-nonsense air. Behind her hung framed certificates and a photo of her with a golden retriever that looked happier than anyone in my marriage. Mr. Harrove, she said, tell me what's happening. Start at the barbecue if you need to. So I did. I told her everything, and as I spoke, it began to sound absurd, like I was recounting someone else's life. When I finished, Kendra nodded once. Okay, she said. Here's the plain version. I leaned closer to the screen. If your wife is using your identity, your income history, or forged documents to secure financing, she said, you're exposed. Not because you committed fraud, but because you're connected. If a lender believes you authorized it, or if your silence allows it to continue, your name can get tangled in the fallout. I didn't sign anything, I said. I know, Kendra replied. But we have to prove that. And you need to act like a man protecting himself, not a man trying to be agreeable. That stung because it was accurate. I built my adult life around being the nice one, the dependable one, the peacemaker. Kendra went on. We can move fast on a few fronts. 1. Formally separate finances. 2. Document everything. Alerts, emails, conversations. 3. Notify the lender if needed. Then she paused. There's a strategic choice here. What choice? I asked, even though I felt it coming. Sometimes, she said, the cleanest outcome is letting someone keep walking forward, convinced they are right, until the truth catches them in a room full of witnesses. My mouth went dry. Kendra held my gaze through the camera. I'm not advising you to set a trap. I'm telling you to stop saving someone who's actively pushing you under the bus. For a moment, I couldn't answer. My mind leapt backward, not to Sharon's cruelty, but to gentler memories, her laugh in a diner booth 20 years ago, the way she held my arm at my mother's funeral, evenings on the couch watching old movies when life felt uncomplicated. Then I remembered her expression at the barbecue, the contempt, the certainty that I'd always swallow it. I looked down at my hands. They were steady. I don't want to destroy her, I said quietly. Kendra's voice softened slightly. Then don't. But don't let her destroy you. After the call, I opened a blank email address to the lender contact Marissa had mentioned. My fingers hovered over the keys. 2 sentences could end everything. I typed the first line, then stopped. I stared until my eyes burned. In the end, I saved it as a draft. Not sent. Not yet. Something in me, older than fear, wanted Sharon to stand fully in her choices, publicly, with the same confidence she'd had when she told me I'd come crawling back. I closed the laptop, drew a slow breath, and made myself a promise. I would stay calm. I would stay legal. I would be ready. And I would let the rope play out just long enough for the truth to tighten on its own. I told myself that unsent email was a safety net, not a weapon. But once you decide to stop rescuing someone, you begin to see how often you've been doing it. Sharon texted the next morning as if nothing had happened. Morning. Babe, did you get the paperwork? Just sign it when it comes. I'm busy today. Outside my Berlin window, the sky was slate gray. A bus hissed at the corner. I stared at her message until my coffee went cold, then typed back, "What paperwork?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then her reply landed like a slap. "Don't start, Frank. It's just for the business. You said you wanted me to do something with my life." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a folder on my laptop. Screenshots, bank alerts, the compliance email, Marissa's contact, Kendra's notes. I named it the way I name work projects, Harrow documents. It felt unsettling to reduce my marriage to a digital folder, but it also felt unavoidable. During my lunch break, I returned a call to Earl Donnelly back in Toledo. I could hear the familiar clatter of his aging Ford through the phone line. "I can swing by your place after work," he offered. "Just observe," I told him. No knocking. No confrontation. 2 hours later, Earl sent a photo of my driveway. My Jeep was parked where it always was, beside a silver sub I didn't recognize. Another image followed, lights glowing inside my house, curtains wide open, as if Sharon wanted the whole street to witness a victory. Sharon called that night, voice only. "Why aren't you picking up?" she snapped. "I'm working," I replied. "You're always working," she shot back, "while I'm handling everything here." "What exactly is everything?" I asked, deliberately calm. There was a pause. "Building something real," she said, "and you're treating me like the enemy." I received a compliance notice. I told her. They're asking me to confirm signatures linked to our address. Silence followed, heavy, cautious. "That's routine," she finally said, too quickly and far too smoothly. "Did you sign my name?" I asked. "You're overreacting," she said. "I'm your wife. We share everything." "We don't share my signature," I replied. Her voice softened, the way it always did just before the blade came out. "Frank," she murmured, "don't do this from overseas. Don't paint me as a villain." "I didn't," I said. "You did." The call ended abruptly. After that, sleep became a string of small losses, 10 minutes here, 20 there. I kept waking with my heart racing, like I'd missed a critical shipment deadline. At work, I handled port delays and customs issues while my mind replayed Sharon's smile at the barbecue on a loop. Rick Lawson noticed before anyone else. "You look like you've been surviving on airport coffee and regret," he said. "Close enough," I muttered. I told him about the suspected forged signature and the bank alerts. Rick didn't blink. "She's burning through your identity like a credit card," he said. "Stop letting her." That afternoon, I had another call with Kendra Holt. No small talk. No sympathy. Just instructions. "Legally separate the finances," she said. "Open new accounts. Redirect your deposits. Add dual authorization to the joint account. Document everything. And do not argue with her by phone. She'll lose it, I said. Kendra didn't waver. Let her. Anger isn't proof. Paper trails are. I followed her advice exactly. It felt like tightening bolts on a machine I didn't want to admit was breaking down. Sharon's messages came in waves. So this is how you control me from Europe. I knew you'd betray me. Men always do when women try to succeed. Then later, softer, almost believable. Frank, please, the house feels empty without you. That one hit hard, because it sounded like the woman I used to know. Then I remembered the loan application, the forged signature, and the unfamiliar car in my driveway. It wasn't emptiness she feared. It was losing control. By Friday morning, my body stopped pretending. My blood pressure was high enough that a clinic nurse gently reminded me that stress wasn't a pastime. Walking back, the city smelled of wet stone and cigarettes. A bakery window glowed warmly, filled with bread I couldn't pronounce. And it struck me how far I'd traveled just to feel respected. Back in Toledo, respect used to be straightforward. Show up, do your work, pay your bills, shake a man's hand and mean it. Somewhere along the way, I started tolerating less at home than I'd ever accept from a stranger at work. In my apartment, I sat at the small table and stared at my wedding ring. It had always symbolized a promise. Now it felt like evidence of how long I'd stayed silent. I didn't remove it. Not yet. I just pressed my thumb against the metal until it warmed. I repeated the same rule I give new hires when cargo goes missing. Don't guess, don't panic, follow the trail. When I stepped outside, my jaw was tight and my hands finally steady, not from peace, but from resolve. I called Earl again. How bad is it? I asked. He sighed. She put up a sign in the yard. What kind of sign? Plastic stake. Real estate style. For what? Grand opening, he said. Sharon Harrove Imports. Saturday night. Community Hall on Monroe. My stomach sank. She was using our last name. It gets worse, Earl added. It says sponsored by Franklin Harrove's Legacy and Connections. Like my entire life had been turned into a stage prop. I heard Kendra's voice in my head. Sometimes the truth needs witnesses. I'm coming home, I said. Earl didn't celebrate. Want me nearby? Yeah, I said, but I'm not looking for a fight. You never were, he replied gently. That night, I booked a flight, Berlin to Detroit, Detroit to Toledo Express. I packed light, documents, one clean shirt, my laptop, and a worn-down kind of determination. Before leaving for the airport, I stood in the Berlin silence one last time. The refrigerator hummed, a distant train rumbled, and I sent Sharon one message. I'll be in Toledo Saturday. No threat, no plea, just a timestamp. If she wanted an audience, I was finally ready to provide one. When I stepped off the plane in Toledo, it wasn't the cold that hit first. It was the smell. Jet fuel and damp air. Even in early June, the city had a way of turning evenings into something that felt like late fall. It smelled like home, asphalt, coffee, and the Maumee River on a windy day. I didn't go to the house. That was Kendra's rule. Don't give her a private scene, she'd warned. If she wanted to control the story, don't let it happen behind closed doors. Instead, I checked into a Holiday Inn near the airport, the kind with beige carpet and an ice machine that always sounds terminal. I met Kendra Holt in the lobby. She looked exactly like she had on video. Sharp eyes, tailored suit, zero tolerance for nonsense. She slid into the booth across from me, legal pad in hand. You look terrible, she said, not unkindly. I feel worse. I admitted. Good, she replied. That means you're paying attention. She reviewed the plan again, clear and precise. You'll attend the event. You won't speak until I tell you to. You won't argue or raise your voice. Sharon will provoke you. She'll want emotion. Don't give it to her. I nodded. You brought everything. I slid the folder across. Bank alerts, screenshots, compliance notices, Marissa's verification, and the loan summaries Kendra had legally subpoenaed. No tricks. No hacking. Just documents. The adult way to fight. She flipped through it calmly, like sorting receipts after an audit. This is strong, she said. And the best part? None of it is opinion. It's all fact. What if she cries? I asked, hating myself for the question. Kendra's gaze hardened. Frank, if she cries because she's exposed, that's not your responsibility. Saturday night, I drove past the house. I told myself I wouldn't, but the streets guided my hands. Reynolds Road, the old diner signs, the cracked sidewalks. The yard looked staged. The sign was there, just like Earl said. Plastic steak, bold lettering, Sharon Harrove Imports. Grand opening tonight. Beneath it, in smaller print, it read, sponsored by the legacy and connections of Franklin Harrove. My legacy, 35 years of clean work, steady ethics, and quiet responsibility, had been turned into a brand you could splash across a banner. A car I didn't recognize was parked in my driveway, with another sitting crooked along the curb. Through the window, I caught flashes of movement, people inside my living room, laughing. I kept driving, not because I was scared, but because Kendra was right. A private confrontation where Sharon would have the advantage. She'd cry, accuse, twist a story, and I'd end up standing there drained, trying to justify myself like a teenager caught sneaking in after curfew. Instead, I turned onto Monroe Street. The Toledo Community Hall was a kind of place you'd visited 100 times if you grew up nearby. Harsh fluorescent lights, folding chairs, a low stage that had hosted retirement parties and church bazaars, and a parking lot filled with sensible, practical cars. When I pulled in, I stayed seated for a moment, both hands gripping the steering wheel. I listened to my breathing. I tasted stale airplane coffee lingering in the back of my throat. You'll come crawling back. I wasn't crawling, but I was shaking, not from fear. It felt more like the body's final resistance before the mind takes control. Earl's truck pulled in next to me. He got out slowly, like a man bracing himself for bad weather. You ready? He asked. As I'll ever be, I replied. He studied my face. You want me close? Just nearby, I said. If I start doing something stupid, remind me I'm 58. Earl smiled faintly. I'll remind you you're 60, he corrected. Inside the hall, the smell hit first. Cheap perfume mixed with coffee from oversized metal urns and the unmistakable scent of potluck casseroles. Someone had arranged cheese cubes and crackers on a folding table. A banner stretched across the stage, displaying Sharon's business name in bold lettering. Sharon stood near the front, dressed like she was campaigning for office, hair curled, dress tailored, smile bright enough to blind. She was holding court, laughing easily, brushing elbows, making people feel like being near her was a privilege she granted. I recognized several faces, neighbors, a few people from church, someone's cousin who always knew how to work a room. My stomach tightened when I saw two men from my industry, guys I'd negotiated shipping bids with, men who trusted my word because I had never lied to them. She'd invited them. She'd used my name as bait. Kendra met me near the back, composed as a judge. She wore a navy suit and carried a plain folder, as if she were heading into a board meeting instead of a public reckoning. Remember, she said quietly, we're not here to humiliate her. We're here to stop the damage and tell the truth. I nodded, even though part of me wanted humiliation. I won't pretend otherwise. Sharon had been humiliating me for years. Small laughs, subtle cuts. Tonight, everyone would finally see the pattern I'd been swallowing alone. Sharon stepped onto the stage and tapped the microphone. Hi, everyone, she said brightly. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. It truly means a world to me. Polite applause followed. She smiled wider. Some of you know this past year has been difficult. I won't go into details, but sometimes life forces you to reinvent yourself. More applause. I could already feel her shaping the narrative, Sharon the victim, Sharon the survivor. Her eyes scanned the room, searching. Me. When she found me, her smile cracked for half a second, just enough to notice, before she recovered. Tonight, she continued, is about new beginnings, courage, and not letting anyone, tell you what you can't do. The applause grew louder. The two industry men nodded along, clearly impressed. Sharon leaned closer to the microphone, softening her tone. And I have to thank my husband, Frank, she said. Even though he chose a different path, his legacy and connections inspired me to build something of my own. There it was, the lie wrapped neatly inside a compliment. My hands clenched, pulse pounding in my fingertips. Earl shifted slightly beside me, grounding me. Kendra stepped forward, calm and deliberate. Sharon raised her glass. To reinvention, she said. Applause swelled. Someone whistled. Then Kendra's voice cut cleanly through the noise. Not loud, not angry, just unmistakably clear. Mrs. Harrove, she said. I'm Kendra Holt, attorney for Mr. Franklin Harrove. At first, the room didn't quiet. People assumed it was part of the event. Then Sharon's face tightened. Kendra walked to the front table and placed her folder down with a soft thud. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. The sound of paper against plastic echoed like a warning. Before you continue, Kendra said, we need to address documentation you submitted to obtain a business loan. Applause faded in fragments. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Sharon laughed, though her eyes didn't match it. This isn't the time, she said, still smiling, still trying. It's exactly the time, Kendra replied evenly, because you've been using Mr. Harrow's identity and income history without authorization. A murmur rippled through the room like wind through dry leaves. Sharon's gaze snapped back to me, sharp, furious, frightened. Her lips moved, but no sound came at first. Then she hissed, venomous and low, not into the microphone but into the space between us. Frank, what are you doing? I didn't answer. I watched the truth stand in front of witnesses. Sharon's instinct wasn't remorse. It was performance. She stepped off the stage, smiled back in place, approaching Kendra like she was greeting an old friend at church. The crowd leaned in. You could hear throats clearing, paper plates shifting, a chair leg squealing against tile. Oh my goodness! Sharon laughed too loudly. Kendra, right? This is all just a misunderstanding. Kendra didn't smile. She opened the folder. Mrs. Harrove, she said calmly, I'll keep this simple. She placed 3 stacks of papers on the table like cards in a game no one wanted to play. 1, she said, tapping the first, the loan application submitted for Sharon Harrove Imports, dated May 28th. 2, tapping the next, the attached power of attorney granting you signing authority from Mr. Harrove. And 3, tapping the last, the lender's fraud flag and signature comparison report. The room grew quieter, not silent, but attentive in that way people get when they realize they may need to remember what they are hearing. Sharon's smile began slipping at the edges. You can't do this, she whispered, her voice no longer meant for the crowd. It was for me. I stepped forward, not threatening, just present. I wanted her to see I wasn't hiding behind my lawyer. I was standing on my own. Frank, she said, eyes wide, are you really trying to destroy me in front of everyone? I looked around. Neighbors, church members, 2 industry men who had trusted my word. Earl stood off to the side, arms crossed, guarding an invisible line. I didn't invite everyone here, I said quietly. You did. Her eyes flared. Because you left me, she snapped. You ran off to Europe like some old man with a passport. I finished the thought for her. A few people shifted uncomfortably. A woman toward the back raised a hand to her mouth, eyes wide. The 2 men from the industry stopped nodding altogether. Their expressions changed. Now they were paying attention. Kendra spoke again, her tone calm and precise. Mrs. Hargrove, did Mr. Hargrove authorize you to use his income records to secure this loan? Sharon scanned the room, as though hoping someone might step in and save her. We're married, she said, as if that alone settled it. That's our money. That isn't how authorization works, Kendra replied evenly. Sharon's voice sharpened. He was supposed to support me. Something inside my chest loosened, not because the pain faded, but because clarity finally arrived. Sharon had never viewed marriage as a partnership. To her, it had always been entitlement. Kendra turned a single page and read without flourish or drama. This application claims Mr. Hargrove will be actively involved in operational logistics and procurement. She continued, it also states that he granted signing authority via power of attorney. The color drained from Sharon's face. Kendra looked up. Mr. Hargrove has confirmed he did not grant power of attorney. He has also confirmed he did not sign these documents. Sharon snapped her head toward me. Her eyes glistened, but it wasn't grief. It was fury laced with panic. "You're doing this because you're angry," she hissed. "Because I made a joke." I exhaled slowly. The room smelled of stale coffee and cheap perfume. For a brief second, I heard the barbecue again, the sizzle of burgers, the neighbors' laughter cutting off too soon. Sharon's words sliced through me, sharp and brittle. "You'll come crawling back." "I'm doing this because you lied," I said quietly, "and because you used my name." Her voice fractured. "So you're just going to let me fail?" Kendra answered before I could. "No one is letting you do anything, Mrs. Hargrove. You filed the paperwork. You chose to attach forged authority." The word forged hit the room like a drop plate. Murmurs rippled outward. Sharon spun toward the crowd, hands raised in a performative gesture. "This is absurd," she said loudly. "Frank is confused. He's stressed. He's been overseas. He's not thinking clearly." That one hurt because it wasn't new. It was a narrative she'd relied on for years. Frank's dependable. Frank's old. Frank's slipping. Tom Caldwell, the one I knew, gray-haired with a neat jacket, tilted his head, studying her carefully. Nate Pierce scowled, as if he'd tasted something unpleasant. Kendra leaned forward slightly, her voice still measured. "The lender flagged your submission because the signature does not match Mr. Hargrove's verified specimen. His employer's compliance department also requested confirmation, as these documents triggered a disclosure issue related to his role." Sharon's mouth opened, then closed. In that instant, she understood she hadn't just gambled with our marriage. She'd gambled with my career, and my career was the one place I'd never allowed weakness. She stepped toward me, and for the first time that night her tone softened, nearly pleading. "Frank," she whispered, "please don't do this here. Not in front of them." The room seemed to hold its breath. She reached for my arm, and I flinched instinctively, not from fear of being hurt, but from the sudden awareness of how often I'd been pulled back before, emotionally tugged into place with a smile and a dose of guilt. Her eyes filled as she murmured, "You'll come crawling back. You always do." There it was again, not a threat, but a certainty. I looked at her carefully. Her makeup was flawless, but her hands trembled. Her confidence, the armor she wore so well, was slipping away. I could have said something cool. I could have enjoyed the moment. Instead, my voice came out steady, almost mournful. "I crawled back once," I said. "For us. I apologize for things I never did just to keep the peace." Her lips quivered. "Frank." "Not anymore," I said. Kendra stepped forward, holding a single sheet of paper. "Mrs. Hargrove, this is formal notice that Mr. Hargrove does not authorize any financial activity, business filings, or loan applications in his name or tied to his income. This notice will be forwarded to the lender and all relevant parties." Sharon grasped at the air, as if she could tear the document away. "You can't," she whispered. Kendra didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "We can, and we have." The silence became absolute. I could hear the building's air conditioning click on. Sharon's eyes darted from face to face. People who'd been smiling at her 10 minutes earlier suddenly found their shoes fascinating. The woman who brought the casserole stared down at it like it was unfamiliar. Sharon lifted her chin, trying to reclaim control. "Fine," she snapped. "Fine. If you want to humiliate me, go ahead, but don't think you'll get away with this." Her voice rose again, bright and cutting. "Everyone here should know Frank is doing this out of spite. He left me. He abandoned me. Now he's come back to punish me." I waited a moment, then spoke, not loudly, just clearly. "I didn't come back to punish you. I came back to tell the truth and keep my name clean." Tom Caldwell shook his head slowly, disappointment written across his face. Nate Pierce's expression hardened. Both men stepped back, as though physical distance might protect them from association. That's the reality of public spaces. Once the lights are on, you can't dictate what people see. Sharon swallowed, eyes shining. For the first time, I saw genuine fear, not fear of losing me, but fear of losing the story she'd built, where she was always right. I didn't stay to watch it collapse further. Kendra gathered her papers, composed as ever. Earl stepped to my side, offering quiet support without a word. As we headed for the exit, Sharon's voice chased after me, strained and desperate. "You'll regret this. You'll come back. You'll—" I stopped at the door. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and cool night air brushed my face. I turned just enough for her to see me. "Sharon," I said gently but firmly, "the only thing I regret is waiting this long to stand up." Then I walked out. The parking lot was damp and dark. My breath fogged the air. Somewhere nearby, a car door slammed. Life continued, indifferent as ever. Earl glanced at me as we reached his truck. "You okay?" I drew a long breath and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Space. "Yeah," I said, my voice rough. "I think I am."